that risk ought to be put on the people that caused him to be in here in the first place. And I've found that juries agree with that. It's true. In other words, Keith should not have been having the one 30 years later running the risk of having surgery and be having to pay for it himself or making arrangements to pay for it. Those people that put him in that position should have been paying money up front to have it there in case it ever happened to him. Even though a doctor couldn't say medically probable it was going to happen. It did happen. We got a prime living example right here where it did happen. Those of you that are listening, you know people right now. Some of you may have been in this situation that were injured years ago, and nobody thought too much about it, didn't make any big deal out of it, and today you're paying a terrible price because of what happened to you years ago, whether it's a car wreck or anything. We undervalue, in my opinion, injuries to the human body. I finally decided one day that literally and truly, when you're injured in a wreck, it is a life-altering experience. If you're young and you're hurt, and it's something that's going to cause you problems for the rest of your life, then literally that experience of being in that wreck has altered your life for the rest of your life. And in my opinion, there ain't enough money to pay you for it. I don't care how much insurance there is. If your life has been altered to the point to where it's not the same as it was before you were in that wreck, there's never enough money to pay you for it. Never, in my opinion. Now, we were talking settlement here, but before we do that any further, we probably better take our next break, which may be our last break. I don't know.
You know, the information you give when you're not injured and you don't need an attorney, it's quite intriguing. But when you're injured and you're hearing this information, sometimes the reality of what you're going to have to go through can be pretty tough. More with Gary C. Johnson and Simply the Law right after this. Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson. We'll be back in just a moment.
Choosing a college means choosing an education to last a lifetime.
Hey, my name is Corey, and I'm a sophomore here at Pikeville College. When I was trying to decide where I wanted to go to college, I wanted to go somewhere that would be close. The teachers are always in their office and always there to help you. It's just been a great fit for me so far.
I'm Brooke, and I'm a nursing student here at Pikeville College. This campus, everyone is so nice. It feels like family.
Pikeville College is changing our world, one graduate at a time. We would like to include you.
Welcome back to Simply the Law. I think you answered my question. The probability, but the future is unknown. And the probability certainly wouldn't have covered what ended up happening. It's just an unknown factor, which is pretty scary if you've been in an accident.
I see it all the time. Even clients I represented 10, 15 years ago will come up to me and they'll say, Gary, there's things that have happened to me as I got older that I never dreamed of, or nobody even thought about, or nobody even mentioned when we were in the lawsuit. And it's causing me a lot of problems now. It's causing me a lot of expense. I had to quit work when nobody knew. I was working when it happened. And nobody thought that it affected my ability to work. And nobody did anything because they didn't know, because the doctor said, well, yeah, I can work. And now 20 years later, or 15, I'm not able to work. And it's because this injury has progressed to the point that I can't work, such as yours, Keith. If you were a manual laborer right now, you wouldn't be able to work from that 30-year-old injury.
I'm fortunate that I have the job I have, because if it was anything else, I wouldn't be doing it right now.
And I guess what I'm saying to you folks is, in trying to understand when the human body is hurt and something happens to it, that everybody's body responds differently to what happens. You can't just say this is what usually happens to someone, or this may be or more likely than not be what happened. I had a doctor one time, a defense doctor, testify, and this is what he said, and I'm still mad about it. My client was a good, decent, went to church, honest person that had never asked anything back from anybody except what they could get from the sweat of their brow, ever. And they got what's called a whiplash type injury. But what happens with whiplash type injuries is most of the time, within 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, with physical therapy, those injuries resolve and people get better. Probably 80% of the people that are in that situation get better within that time frame. Except there's a small problem here. 20 out of every 100 don't. And this medical doctor said, based on reasonable medical probability, your client is better because most people recover within 2 months. That's a maximum. Therefore, in my opinion, your client is well and doesn't deserve any future money or anything from this wreck. Yet I've got a client who's a good, decent human being that would die before they would lie about what was wrong with him, saying, my neck is still killing me. Yet they discount the fact that 20 out of every 100 don't get better. But because 80 out of 100 get better, then therefore my client had to be in it.
Yeah.
Still get mad over that every time I think about it. It's just not true. How are we doing time-wise? I wonder. We've got a couple of minutes left. Keith, what are we going to talk about?
I've interrupted you so much. What happens is Gary lays out the program. I ask questions, interrupt him, and we hardly ever get through it. What you were talking about with the neck is so understandable. On my doctor's visit, the very first thing that was said was, you got to stop doing things. You got to take it easy. You got to rest. And when you say that to somebody, you're saying basically, put your life on hold. Stop doing things with your friends. Don't ride your four-wheeler. Don't play golf. What do? Do you sit down? Nobody wants to do that. But if you don't do that, then in public eye, it looks bad on you because you're trying to have a life. You're trying to live.
And the thing about it is, when you're in a wreck and you're hurt, so much is taken away from you, just the aggravation of being in the wreck, of having to have your car towed, of not having your wonderful car that you love, that took you anywhere you wanted to go when you needed to go, it took you and your family anywhere you wanted to go, and it was there and you could depend on it and you needed it so bad, and it's gone. That's a horrible injury to me.
Yeah.
I mean, just that. We're done.
The main thing is it changes your life. Thanks to Gary C. Johnson for the information tonight. I hope it was helpful. Thank you, by all means, for tuning in to Simply the Law. On behalf of Gary C. Johnson, I'm Keith Casebolt. We look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at this same time.